Beautiful day. Could be a little less windy, but that's how I came into town. I sailed in here 25 years ago and never left, and now I get to do this with these amazing people behind me. So I'm honored to be standing in front of these guys who fight for our environment every single day in what they do. I'm Mayor Gavin Buckley. It is the 49th annual Earth Day, and I couldn't be happier to be here with Senator Cardin, Congressman Sarbanes, County Executive Steuart Pittman, and all of the people who work on the environment here to talk about the things we are all doing to help planet Earth. You're standing at City Dock. It's a little slice of history to stand here in a place that for the majority of our time in our city was a working harbour with fisheries. For generations, watermen worked the water and brought their catch in to sell in downtown. Over here, we had a huge above-ground oil storage tanker. At one point in time, white and black fishermen worked side by side, offloading their fish and seafood right here where we are standing. It's really only in the past 50 or so years it is used primarily as a parking lot. You guys can say boo to that if you want. Boo. The fish aren't plentiful, the jobs aren't plentiful. We've got to get people out on the water again. Get them connected to it in a meaningful way so that they care about it. We want to get back to the place where it is swimmable and fishable. But we've also got to be serious about the environmental policy to deal with the impacts of climate change. This area where we are standing sees more frequent and more intense nuisance flooding. Just this past Saturday, much of what you see was a few inches underwater. We've got a team here who can use the power of government to make the Chesapeake Bay and the environment priority one. So I'm going to introduce a guy that fights for us every single day in Washington, D.C. He fights a good fight. My friend, Senator Ben Cardin.
Mayor Buckley, thank you very much for your extraordinary leadership here in the city of Annapolis. This is a national treasure that we have in Annapolis, and your leadership is preserving and moving it forward, and we thank you very much. Quite frankly, Congressman Sarbanes called my office and said, let's do something appropriate for Earth Day. Earth Day, of course, it was Gaylord Nelson, a member of the United States Senate 49 years ago, who said, let's recognize that we all have responsibilities to our Earth and make a day where we can show our commitment to preserving the Earth for future generations. And I was talking with Congressman Sarbanes, he says, let's come to Annapolis and let's do something to show the Chesapeake Bay. And one of the most important programs that doesn't get quite as much attention, and that is the Gateways program. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I want you to know that our entire federal team is very supportive of our commitment to this Earth. Senator Van Hollen wanted to be here. He could not. He has other commitments in other parts of the state today. But he is not only a strong supporter of our programs, he's one of our key co-authors of the Chesapeake Bay Gateways program that we're going to be talking about, and the Chesapeake Bay program itself. I also want to acknowledge the National Park Service that's here in their Chesapeake Bay office, which is an extremely important part of the federal team in the Chesapeake Bay. And yes, we could talk at great length about our efforts to clean up the bay, and we have experts here with Ann Swanson and Joel Dunn and Will Baker, who are our private sector coordinators to make sure that our federal, state, local, private sector are all working to preserve and clean up the bay. The Chesapeake Bay is a national treasure. It's been so declared by administrations, federal administrations for many, many years. It is the largest estuary in our hemisphere, contributes more than $1 trillion to our economy. It's iconic to our way of life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all know how important it is. And yes, we are moving forward with very important programs on the Chesapeake Bay, including the reauthorization of the Chesapeake Bay program at a higher level than it is today. And we have bipartisan support for that, and it passed our committee by strong bipartisan support. That money will be used for a lot of important purposes. But I want to talk today and announce that with Congressman Sarbanes, we will be introducing legislation to reauthorize the Chesapeake Bay Gateway Program. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with that part of the program, it's to help us understand how the bay and our river trails can work. So it gives technical assistance to help groups that are working in this area, but also puts a priority on establishing access to the bay, because we want people to be able to enjoy the bay. I saw the sailboats come by. Mayor Buckley, that was really well timed that you had all these sailboats come by to show us. Annapolis is a gateway to the Chesapeake Bay. This is a relatively small program in total dollars, $2 million a year we basically spend, but it's been used for over 300 programs since its inception about 20 years ago. And we want to make sure that this program continues. We have strong bipartisan support. We're going to get it done in this Congress, working together. And as I said to Will Baker, we have a tough graders here in the private sector on what we need to do with the bay. And the reason for that is that the bay is very, very fragile. It does require extraordinary attention. It's an amazing body of water, but it doesn't cleanse itself by itself as it used to. And more people want to live in this area. So we have to even do more to preserve it for the future. This group behind me are committed to making sure we do everything we can on Earth Day and every day to preserve the Chesapeake Bay and our environment for future generations. And the leader in the House of Representatives who believes no child should be left inside, that everyone should understand the responsibilities of the Chesapeake Bay, John Sarbanes.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. Happy Earth Day. This partnership that's represented behind us, and it's just part of the many folks that have come together to help the Chesapeake Bay, I think is really unrivaled when you look around the country. So many cutting-edge initiatives have been begun here in Maryland around the Chesapeake Bay, and those models, those best practices are now borrowed not just nationally, but internationally. I was this morning on Poplar Island for about 3 hours. We got a tour out there. That, of course, is an engineering and environmental triumph when you look at who's come together there to make sure that we keep our channels so that they can handle this deep port traffic, but also take that dredge material and then provide for wetlands restoration, building habitats there at Poplar Island. It really says so much about what we've modeled here in the state of Maryland. Senator Cardin, thanks to you and to Senator Van Hollen for your incredible work on the Senate side, really leading the charge when it comes to protecting and preserving the Chesapeake Bay. I'm very pleased that next week we will be introducing with Senator Cardin, so in both chambers, the Chesapeake Bay Gateways and Water Trails Reauthorization Act. The idea is to get that in place and authorized through the year 2025. As Senator Cardin indicated, this is, a lot of people can see the bay, but getting to the bay is another matter. So you need the Gateways program to create these points of access. There's 170 sites through the Chesapeake Bay watershed that are part of the Gateways and Water Trails program. This is one of them. City Dock is part of the Gateways program. Interpretation, education, recreation, all of those are fulfilled through the Gateways program, so we want to make sure that we keep that strong. As Senator Cardin said, in addition, we've been working on the House side and the Senate side to make sure that we get the Chesapeake Bay program reauthorized at a higher level, at the $90 million level, over the next 5 years. In fact, we want to add $500,000 each of the subsequent years after this first year at $90 million. That program, again, a national and international model, setting benchmarks. What gets measured gets done. Chesapeake Bay Foundation understands this. Will Baker's been leading the charge on this for many, many years, but that's the pollution diet. That sets the targets that we can meet with watershed improvement plans and all of the other measures that we've undertaken to meet the guidance of the Chesapeake Bay program. But making sure that the federal commitment to that stays strong is part of that alliance, and that's what we're dedicated to do with reauthorizing that program and trying to hit that higher level of funding. So we're energized. This is an incredible group. We're going to hear from them in a moment, but I just want to salute, as I did Will Baker, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Ann Swanson with the Chesapeake Bay Commission, Joel Dunn with the Chesapeake Bay Conservancy, one of many partners that keep our efforts to restore the Chesapeake Bay strong and on the leading edge. So I'm thrilled to be part of this partnership. As I say, we are setting the model for the country in terms of what happens here with the Chesapeake Bay. But I know also here with us today in the audience are many others who've been part of that effort. So I want to thank you, and I want to help you celebrate Earth Day by thanking you. We have a new county executive here in Anne Arundel County. Applause line for Steuart Pittman. And he made the environment a central part of his campaign, and it doesn't surprise me that the voters of Anne Arundel County responded to that when they went to the polls last November. So it's really a pleasure and an honor to introduce your new county executive, Steuart Pittman.
Happy Earth Day! Hold that up. Look over there. There's a sign. It says time is precious. And time is precious. We cannot wait. We have to save our Chesapeake Bay, and we have to create renewable energy so that we can combat climate change. And I started out the day this morning at a place called Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, CERC. Has anybody ever been there before? Yeah? Fantastic. 2,600 acres right here in Anne Arundel County. And that's the place where they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt the trees matter, that if you plant trees and if you have vegetation close to the streams that go into the Chesapeake Bay, that you can improve water quality. So they have a demonstration project there where they're planting trees, and in fact the developers are paying them to do it because the developers cut down the trees and then they have to pay into the Forest Conservation Fund, and one of the places that they plant those trees is at CERC, and they cut the nitrogen in the water from when it was a cornfield to now by 80%. And the studies that they have done there have guided our policy so that there's no debate about the policy anymore. And we went there this morning at 9 o'clock because we were announcing the creation for the first time, I'm shocked that there hasn't been this, of a Citizens Environmental Commission in Anne Arundel County. And its job is to, its job is to help us fulfill the promise that we have to the Chesapeake Bay to restore its health, but also to address renewable energy and climate change in our county. I want to recognize Lisa Rodvian, who's here from our county council. Let's just step on up and really wave, because we've just gotten started. We've only been in for 4 months, but we did ban styrofoam thanks to Lisa's bill on the county council. We did not do it before the city of Annapolis. They're always a step ahead. But we did it just before the state of Maryland. So now we're all there. And I can proudly say that in the basement of the Arundel Center, where we all go down to get our food when we're in a hurry, there used to be styrofoam stacked this high. You couldn't buy anything there without getting it in styrofoam. Chris Trumbauer refused to go down there. And now he can go because they have already switched over. The rest of the restaurants will take a few months to do that. It's a great Earth Day. So many of us are doing good work in the state of Maryland and Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis, and our federal partners are on board as well. Maybe one in there is not, but we're fighting back against him. And it's wonderful that this Chesapeake Gateways program is going to be reauthorized, because so many sites in Anne Arundel County are part of that. Cirque is part of that, and I know a few sites that we're talking about working on that we may hear about later that could be excellent additions to the Chesapeake Gateway. So thank you all for coming, and I am passing it on to, it actually says Gavin Buckley again.
Thanks, Stu. Great. Again, I want to stress how proud I am to be part of this team. I know we all care about this. The environment is not political. I mean, it's not partisan. We all want, red or blue, we all want clean water and clean air and access. So I think it's amazing putting this group together. City Dock and this historic area where we're standing feels the real impact of recurrent nuisance flooding on a regular basis. Where there had been a handful of flooding events in previous generations, we have up to 40 days a year when you can't park down here and businesses are impacted. The Stanford University just conducted a study on the cost of recurrent flooding and determined that it costs both the city and the businesses hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue. I want Annapolis to be the resiliency capital of the world. We will also be the environmental watchdog at the same time. We have to figure out ways to control the flooding without bankrupting the city. I'm very pleased to announce that our nuisance flooding project here at City Dock, which will cost several millions of dollars and take a couple of years to complete, will be getting underway soon. We also have a more immediate pumping solution that we hope to implement by summer to help some of the businesses along Dock Street that have water coming to their front door on a regular basis. Alongside the city and federal dollars, Speaker Mike Bush was able to secure $1 million for the City Dock in this year's general budget. He's no longer... And I would just like to say that Mike Bush was our lion, and he went out like a lion. This session, he did so much for this city, this county, and this state. He is no longer with us, but his legacy for the environment lives on. My administration has made strong commitments to the environment. As part of our effort, we are realigning some of the positions at city government so that we can take an approach to the environment of oversight that encompasses all departments in city government. We have assembled a waterways cabinet of influential environmentalists and city employees to ensure that we are working towards environmental goals in all city work. Last year, we worked with the City Council to pass a styrofoam ban. Then the county followed us. Thanks, Stu. And in the recent General Assembly session, the state passed one too. Styrofoam never degrades. It breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces and pollutes waterways and stormwater systems. It is ingested by wildlife and passed on to us when we eat fish or swim. I'm glad the city, the county, and the state are all in agreement that we need to end the use of styrofoam. In the city, we also amended our Forest Conservation Act to make sure that trees are replanted and provide incentives to retain forest and mature trees wherever possible. We are working to be carbon neutral. We have upgraded city infrastructure for more energy efficient systems and upgrading LED lighting in garages, buildings, pump stations, and by August of this year, every street light in the city will operate on LED. We've built a solar park on an old landfill. Next, we want to move towards the elimination of single-use plastic in the city. To start, we'll eliminate plastic bags in food, and we'll launch a public education campaign to get people to change their habits. We are making applications for a no discharge zone in Annapolis that will require all boaters to pump out their waste to a pump station. This keeps harmful human waste out of our harbour, rivers and creeks And I was stunned to realize that we weren't a no discharge zone. How could we have let that happen? But we have the right people to make change happen. We're also addressing transit solutions with bike shares, connecting people and pedestrian paths, and ensuring our streets are safe for bicyclists and cars. Cars are one of the leading sources of greenhouse gas emissions, according to the EPA, and we are encouraging people to make different transportation choices. Finally, Annapolis is taking all the thank you. Finally, Annapolis is taking all the right steps towards doing its part to reduce our stormwater load and stay on target to reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment as required by the Chesapeake Bay pollution diet. We have adopted greater stormwater treatment standards than the country and the state requires. We are being proactive, but we can always do more. I urge residents to use their voice to urge the Annapolis City Council to pass these ordinances. And I'll get to that last page in a minute because it's windy out here. And be mindful to change their behavior and make improvements in order to help planet Earth day and every day. It will take all of us to turn this around. Mother Earth, Annapolis is with you, and with that, I'd like to do it. I'm sure you're a mother. Anne, are you? Another great mother, Anne Swanson. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be here on Earth Day, and I really want to commend Senator Cardin, Senator Van Hollen, who couldn't be here but certainly is here in spirit, Congressman Sarbanes, Mayor Gavin Buckley, and also County Executive Steuart Pittman, as well as all of my colleagues, both behind me and in front of me, who care deeply about the environment. You know, when I see that sign, time is precious, to me, it's what you choose to do with your time each day, day in and day out, and whether you choose to weigh in, whether you choose one of those waking hours to actually express what is needed. And what I want to do in my brief time here is to recognize that the leaders who are sponsoring this conference today are doing just that. It's a miracle when you think about it that they're all standing here as saying environment is a top priority. It's not a frivolous thing. It's a main integrator in everything we do, whether it's economic growth, whether it's ecological stability, whether it's community relations and friendship and stability. And these people are doing just that day in and day out at the federal level, making sure that the federal government delivers the goods and services and funding that we need to better protect our environment. In my short time today, I want to talk about two particular actions they are taking right now that deeply matter. I've been doing this for 35 years, maybe 36, on the Chesapeake Bay, so I know a lot of what has come down in Chesapeake Bay and what's important and what's not. Let's talk about the Gateways and Water Trails program. It's a program you don't know a lot about, but here's what you do know. You know that the Chesapeake Bay is not just about degradation. It's not just about pollution. It's not just about, sort of the trials and tribulations of balancing a population with an extraordinary estuary. What it's about is magic. The Chesapeake Bay is such an extraordinary resource that when you go out on it, you realize you could have paid $5,000 for some adventure cruise and be just as happy as you are right there on the Chesapeake Bay. It is one of the most productive estuaries in the world. And what the Gateways and Water Trail program does is it provides funding for interpretive signage. It helps all of these different visitation areas help us to understand the resource that we're seeing. It helps with technical assistance. It helps with new access points. And the Chesapeake Bay is largely privately owned. And so access can be really difficult. As a kayaker, I can tell you, you have to break the law to get in the water half the time. And so what I'm saying is this Gateways and Water Trail program, it's the integrator amongst all of us to really enjoy the Chesapeake Bay. And there is no other federal program that connects more people to the waters, to the rivers, than gateways and water trails. Now, the second program I want to talk about is what these guys are doing to lift the Chesapeake Bay program funding. That funding is catalytic, because what it does is it leverages at a 2-to-1, sometimes 3-to-1 ratio of other investments at the state and local level. So that funding deeply managed. And when they talk about increasing the funding to $90 million, they're talking about taking it from 73 to 90 million. That's a 23% increase. If they pull it off, which I hope will happen, and there's every reason for it to happen, it will mean extraordinary gains in our resources and very targeted investment of those resources. There is no other estuary on the planet that has the kind of data that we have. And what that means is we can target those investments in extremely cost-effective ways. And right now, the eyes of the nation and the eyes of the world are on the Chesapeake. It is the oldest restoration program in the country. It's the one that has a pollution diet that's due in 2025. We are under the gun to be successful, and this additional investment will help guarantee that. So I want all of you to realize that these people have made the investment of time a very precious thing, and they've put their precious time on the environment. I want to thank you all.
Ann is such a wonderful conservation hero. I'm Joel Dunn. I'm the president and CEO of the Chesapeake Conservancy. I'm very grateful to be with you today and to be with these conservation heroes behind me. Because of them, my 2 young daughters and our families and our friends and the visitors to the Chesapeake will be able to experience the magic of the Chesapeake that Ann spoke to you about. Our organization has strong and enduring partnerships with the National Park Service, with the Environmental Protection Agency, and leading advocacy organizations like the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, policy experts like the Chesapeake Bay Commission, and many of the other partners that are here today, like National Parks Conservation Association. We know that when people feel connected to the Bay, they'll be more likely to take care of it. Our hope is that once connected, they may decide to vote for politicians who care for the environment, donate to their favorite nonprofit, even choose a career in conservation. Nevertheless, of the Chesapeake's 12,000 miles of shoreline, only about 2% is publicly accessible. That makes it difficult for advocates for the Chesapeake Bay to form. When you've never seen it or you don't understand it, you won't do those critical things. For 20 years now, thanks to Senator Cardin and Representative Sarbanes, the National Park Service Chesapeake Bay Office, through the Chesapeake Bay Gateways program and the associated national trails, have been creating and enhancing outdoor recreation opportunities and educational opportunities for the public. Thanks to their effort and that of their partners, they've created 153 new public access sites since 2010. They're helping people get out on the bay. What an amazing accomplishment. They're leveraging the web and the internet to connect people with the awesome resources online. They've built findyourchesapeake.com, which is like the Amazon.com for outdoor recreation experiences in the Chesapeake. Please check it out. It's amazing. They have helped facilitate land conservation across the entire watershed through public and private partnerships to the tune of 1.4 million acres since 2010. The Park Service and the Chesapeake Bay Gateways program have become a critical component to the Chesapeake Bay program. The Park Service, get this, they're in charge of 5 of the 2014 Bay Agreement goals: public access, land conservation, environmental stewardship, diversity, environmental education. This authorization and appropriation are reaping huge dividends for our citizenry, thanks to the leaders behind me. There's also major economic benefits from the Gateways program, as this helps enhance visitor spending, tourism, and other resources for our area. Last year, for the first time, the Federal Bureau of Economic Analysis released numbers detailing the economic power of outdoor recreation. Did you know it accounts for 2% of our gross domestic product here in the United States? That's impressive. That puts it on par with construction, agriculture, extraction, and it's growing at 3.8% per year. In Maryland, the Outdoor Industry Association found that outdoor recreation brought in $14 billion in 1 year, 100,000 jobs, $4.4 billion in wages and salaries, and $951 million in state and local taxes. Think about that. So on this Earth Day, when you think about the environment, think about the economy too, because those two go hand in hand. Now, there's 18 million people that live here, and there's going to be an additional 4 million by 2050. So we've got to focus on protecting the Chesapeake Bay for today, but also for the future. So it's Earth Day. 49 years ago, Gaylord Nelson established this wonderful tradition. And I wish I could tell you that Rachel Carson, the author of Silent Spring, I wish I could tell her we have nothing to worry about, and our springs are as boisterous as ever. Or Aldo Leopold, the father of wildlife management, that the fierce green fire of our wildlife has not died out. Or I could tell Teddy Roosevelt, our nation's premier conservation president, that we've been appropriate stewards of our most glorious heritage. I can't say that. I can say that thanks to Senator Cardin, Representative Sarbanes, Mayor Buckley, Will Baker, Ann Swanson, and our new county executive, that we're making steady progress towards this goal. Now I'm going to wrap up by saying this weekend, I was running up this hill with my wife. We're jogging in the woods, and it was hard. And I heard her say under her breath, she said, "I can do hard things." And we got to the top without stopping, and I was so proud of her and so impressed. And I thought about this environmental movement, and I thought, you know what? We can do hard things. We can do this. We can restore this bay. We just need to think big. We need to work together. We need to shift it into high gear. Thank you.
Hey, happy Earth Day. Do you love the Earth? Come on, let's hear it. You love the Bay. We can do it. When I was a young boy, I was riding in a car and I saw a sign that said, "Save the Bay." And I asked my dad, "Will the Bay die?" And he said, "Well, maybe so, unless somebody helps it." These folks behind me are helping. And they're part of a large movement across this state and this region that's unmatched anywhere in the world, and that's why we're seeing results. So Senator Cardin, Congressman Sarbanes, all of Team Maryland, remember Barbara Mikulski, Team Maryland, other elected officials and my colleagues, great job for gateways and for the Bay. Giving people opportunities to experience the outdoors, to get outside, is absolutely critical to generating a constituency for the Bay. For over 50 years, my organization, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, has put students and teachers on the water, in the field, in the marsh. This year, we're doing over 35,000 students and teachers just in 1 year. Think of it as an investment in the future of the Bay. So how's the Bay doing? The Chesapeake Clean Water Blueprint is working. I like Chesapeake Clean Water Blueprint rather than pollution diet, because nobody likes a diet, but a blueprint is just darn good, and that's what we have in terms of the effort to save the Bay. Bay grasses and water quality are improving, and the dead zone is getting smaller. When I started in 1976 at CBF, I never thought I would be able to say that. I thought we would hold the line, but now the cumulative the Bay is getting better. So Senator Cardin said, but it's fragile, and boy, is it fragile. Just look what the record rains last year did to the system. It'll bounce back, but it took a hit. And climate change will require us to do much more. Look at this latest flyer from National Geographic, basically saying that climate change will disproportionately affect the Chesapeake Bay because of the fragility of the system. The administration, do you know what administration I'm talking about? Must address climate change. If President Trump continues to deny that climate change even exists, the burden on the taxpayers of this country to save the Bay will be dramatically increased. So taxpayers, be forewarned. Climate change unaddressed will hit you in your pocketbooks hard. Now, two other things. We've made real progress here in Maryland this past session. The General Assembly took important steps to protect roots and reefs. Roots and reefs. Roots, Maryland's forest resources, and reefs, of course, the oysters. We encourage Governor Hogan to sign both of these bills. If he does, he will ensure protection of Maryland forests and provide for science-driven management of the state's oyster population. Here on Chesapeake Bay, we're making history. Now it's time to finish the job. Thank you all very much.
So one more big round of applause for everybody coming out today. Thank you so much. So remember, you can't fall in love with it. You can't be in love with it unless you can touch it and feel it. And these initiatives about getting more people into the water so we can fight for it.